A series of oddly satisfying flowers, shown in the varying stages of their lives. Sunflowers by Vincent Van Gogh, the most loved painter in history, are if not the only one of the most powerful still lifes of flowers. You can look at any canvas at different times, and at all these times they'll interact in a unique way, as per your state. Whether the fear of losing, the calming state of being with your loved one, the hope of achieving, or the sad faces of shattered dreams. Sunflowers doesn't limit itself to Van Gogh's brushstrokes or artistic maturity, but sets a psychological setting to be magnificent and intelligent. Today in this tape, as we look at the painting in more detail, we'll talk about the historical background of the canvas, learning why Van Gogh painted these, and then move on to its subject matter as well as analysis, enriching our art history with a chapter of Van Gogh's favorite flowers, or perhaps ones he referred to as happy faces. Born into a middle-class family, Vincent was a quiet kid full of warmth, who, as per his sister, knew the places where the rarest flowers bloom as regards birds. He knew exactly where each nested or lived. Though he lived a kind and simple childhood with no inclination towards art, at least not as much as anyone would predict his artistic trait, he went on to become one of the most beautiful art makers in history, making him compose 2100 pieces of works that depict his life in one or another way. It is no secret that Vincent suffered from mental instability, but at one point he used to work in a corporate, earning a living that was no curse to himself. However, after a transition to Paris, a move he didn't essentially like and revolted against by leaving the position, he pursued art making. The life of Vincent is well documented in the 700 letters he wrote to his cherished brother, Theo. Indeed, Vincent fulfilled his wish of writing letters. While these art prints were not conventional for the time, and most of the population, including the people who sat for Van Gogh, depreciated them, they spoke too well with the viewers. Making no difference to this, Sunflowers is a painting that depicts a stage of life in which the artist lived with hope and excitement. At the same time, it is a set of compositions that showcase trauma, and to understand it wholly, we must look at their historical background. Ideal for the faithful and dominant shades of yellow, Vincent used sunflowers to express gratitude, and while there are other flower paintings that the artist has composed, none of them truly depict the emotions he wanted to portray. The happy faces for whom Vincent had a profound love were not limited to reality but even the imagination of the artist. However, it should be known that they were not his first choice to paint on the canvas. On the 19th of February in 1888, when Van Gogh left Paris for Arles, he wrote to Theo in his letter, "It seems to me almost impossible to work in Paris unless one has some place of retreat where one can recuperate and get one tranquility and poise back." To him, Arles was similar to a small Japanese village, with adoring landscapes and a matter of subject for many of his artworks. In fact, it was the most productive place for the artist, though not nearly as successful as when he was covered by a magazine for the Starry Nights. After Van Gogh moved to Arles, he rented 2 rooms in an empty house on Place Lamartine, and since the rooms were unfurnished, he had the task of decorating this house, which he referred to as the Yellow House or Artist House. Though Vincent had Theo and his sister to exchange letters with, he wanted someone who shared art knowledge similar to his. And this was when he spent over a half-year trying to convince Paul Gauguin to join his studio. In the end, Paul finally accepted his invitation. But with this, Vincent had 2 things on his plate: to decorate the Yellow House and to show his friend Paul his best artwork. Following these, in the middle of August, he started decorating his guest room with various sunflower paintings, further indicating his gratitude. Initially, Vincent brought 3 canvases. On first, he decided to draw 3 huge flowers with a green vase and light background. On second, he determined to paint 3 flowers, one among them having a lost petal. And the last canvas exhibited 12 flowers and buds in a yellow vase. And this was how the famous sunflower series originated. Unfortunately, like other artworks of the artist, sunflowers remained in shadowed fame while Vincent was alive. 6 weeks after his passing away, Theo arranged an exhibition for a display of his artworks, but since his health was also deteriorating, he was not able to do much. It was his widow Johanna Van Gogh Bonger who decided to showcase Vincent's works to the world through exhibition loans to museums all over the world. Due to this and only this, numerous buyers emerged for Van Gogh's artworks, and history welcomed such a beautiful and benevolent artist. It is safe to say that you know plenty about the artworks, and it is time that I introduce the subject matter of each canvas in a brief yet detailed manner. The most widely recognized version of sunflowers can be found in the National Gallery, London, showcasing 15 sunflowers in a vase on a light background. Van Gogh painted 6 of these flowers with seeds but no petals in the center to grab the viewer's eye and to symbolize the dried version of the sunflower. The vase contrasts with 2 colors, and the presence of a blue borderline distinguishes the 2 shades of yellow. At the same time, Vincent used a similar shade of blue for his signature on the canvas. One of the noteworthy aspects is the style of the canvas, and when I speak, make no confusion, I refer to the brush strokes and the arrangement of the flowers. Identified as an impasto perfectionist, the brush strokes of sunflowers are so excellent that you can note their podding leaves. In addition to this, Vincent arranged the flowers in a carefree manner to bring the realness of the picture and not to only give them artistic exquisiteness. The twisted and curled stems, alongside the bold color choice, make this a composition that is not only real but emotionally true. However, to know better, we need to break it through an analysis of line, shape, value, and color, the 4 most vital elements of this artwork. To make sunflowers what it looks like today and in the past, Vincent dominantly used lines throughout the canvas. Though the brush strokes form these, you can note how continuous lines fill the canvas while counter lines balance the sunflowers, giving them space and defining the area. Further, the borderline creates an impact and acts as a balancing factor as well as a distinguishing factor for the 2 colors. But this is not it. Vincent used imperfect shapes for the sunflowers. For instance, you can see the flowers appear spiral with imperfect circles and triangular patterns on the stem. There are also cylindrical dome-like shapes in the side profile of the flowers, to again give them space and vision. When comparing the composition with other works of Van Gogh, you'll see that it exceptionally uses low to no contrast, without any light and dark brush strokes, something that you can note clearly in Wheat Field with Crows. As I have mentioned earlier, and to be honest quite a few times, you can note the shades of yellow, orange, green and blue. However, Vincent used red, green and yellow as the primary colors. And through his knowledge of shades that you must already know about, he specifically picked ones that are adjacent on a color wheel. Lastly, Vincent wanted to provide a comforting energy to the viewer. And when you think about how it is possible, the simple answer is his decision to use warm shades in the composition. When you look at the other versions, starting from the one in Munich, you'll somehow find that the 2 compositions, Sunflowers of the National Gallery, London and that in Munich, differ significantly, mainly due to the contrasting appeal of the latter that Vincent achieved through completely opposite colors on the color wheel, yellow and blue. You can also note lightness in the canvas through the use of white brush strokes, making the painting an absolute masterpiece with brightness and contrast. At the same time, the texture of these brush strokes adds space and freshness to flowers. Notably, there's a filling of counter lines to give them an extraordinary appearance of 3-dimension, and how can I forget differentiating the flowers of the canvases that appear different because the Munich version does not focus on the wilted phase but includes fresh sunflowers as if they were just plucked from the garden. Some have withered petals and most disclose their seed pods. Sunflowers in Amsterdam is a clever composition of 15 sunflowers in a vase, and the colors are mostly the contrasting shades of yellow. Though they differentiate clearly with sunflowers of National Gallery and Munich, they share something similar too. If you hold still your eyes and look at the left and the rightmost sunflowers, you'll understand what it is that I'm talking about. Vincent didn't want his sunflowers to be mere copies of each other, and in the pursuit of ensuring that, he composed them with differences in brush strokes and colors. For instance, look at this painting of sunflowers residing in Tokyo. You may think if you have seen them before because subject matter wise they resemble too much with the sunflowers of the National Gallery of London, but the two differ highly in their colors. These sunflowers are sharper, exciting the momentum and competing to pull the attention of the viewers. One of the aspects that make this possible, other than the shade of yellow, is the presence of tints of red, and certainly this is not the only composition that Vincent had painted that depicts sunflowers, as there are many artworks of Van Gogh that exhibit them, like the Philadelphia version, and not to mention the studies he did to perfect their making, but I'll leave your yearning to explore more, as the painting remain under different studies, among which one of the recent ones explored the brush strokes and found that Vincent arranged them compactly and avoided using too many of them, one of the features that stand apart his work in terms of geometric appearance. In addition, if you see sunflowers for a longer duration, you'll see his choices for these brush strokes well depict his mind and emotional state. Though he worked for only 10 years as a painter, I think his works and letters share his story remarkably, making us connect with him better than even a highly documented artist. Despite his problems, he never ceased to exhibit beauty, and it is not a question when I say that there has been no one or will ever be who will anticipate his talent and bring similar impact through their canvases. If I were to summarize this video and what sunflowers depict, even though these majestic flowers bloom, there are times when sadness may appear.